At the time of writing this, I had finished Darkover Landfall 2 days ago, and it was not that good. I haven't read too many science fiction books, but I can tell you that if you want a book about arriving on a new planet, that there are certainly better choices. But I suppose I can forgive the overall quality of the story because I know it's a precursor to the overall series of Darkover, which I haven't read yet. Alright, so Landfall. The plot follows a colony transport ship that unexpectedly crashed on a world outside their map. Of course, it had to land outside the maps for story purposes because this series progresses hundreds and maybe even thousands of years after this book by the time Stormqueen starts. I'll get to that later. The ship had two main factions, technically three. The colony crew, who are volunteers to make a livable life on other planets and slowly introduce industry and modern living over the course of a few generations. The ship crew, who are just on the ship to maintain and study the ship in order to make safe and easy passage between planets. And the technical third group is the Hebrides Commune, a split of the colony crew that are just looking to be hippies on a new planet. They are Scottish, and them being Scottish doesn't matter much. All it contributes to is that they sing songs in Gaelic sometimes, and that they have red hair. I can only remember the names Ewan, McCarran, Leicester, Camilla, Valentine, and Judy, but there are a lot more, and I already put the book back on my shelf, and I'm too lazy to open it up and check the name to know if I'm talking about the right people. But these are really the main ones you need to know. The cast is large, and most of it is not necessary. Leicester is the head of the ship crew who attempts to maintain control over the survivors of the crash. He is quickly demoted after a month or two by the colony crew leader, whose name I don't remember and don't care to. Camilla is the secretary of Leicester and also the source of the worst writing this book has to offer when it comes to other people talking about or to her. She's a love interest of McCarran, and that's all that matters about her, I guess. We're told she's qualified, but at every opportunity, she needs help from the main character. She's even stripped of her rank and told her intelligence and agency doesn't matter about three-quarters of the way in. Ewan just happens to be the most present doctor in the book. He contributes almost nothing except for saving an incidental character from being stung by an ant, who later dies when they all go mad from pollen. Don't ask. Valentine is the colony's resident father, who is supposed to be a holy man, but after they go mad from pollen, don't ask, realizes he was in an orgy with men and women for probably a full day and kills them. His punishment is to be the gravedigger. Fitting, I suppose. I kind of wish there was more of him, not because I thought the writing for him was good, but because if he had more time, he wouldn't be so bad. Judy, who I'll get to in a minute, talks to him while he's working near the end of the book, and you get like 3 pages straight of him bemoaning his sins and saying typical things for a man of the faith after having a shock of no faith. Maybe there is no God here. Maybe we don't need a God here. Maybe I sinned too much, but I shouldn't have done that. Boo hoo. Maybe you shouldn't have been forced to give all your lines in a single scene. Judy is the most interesting character because she's the strongest link to the rest of the series. When they all go mad from pollen, don't ask, she gets impregnated by an alien and given a jewel. If this wasn't here, I'm sure this would just be called a one-off book like Warrior Woman was. It's a shame that she's the character we actually get the least focus on. She should have been the main character, not McAaron. McAaron is our main character, and goddess, I wish he wasn't. McAaron is a geologist, if I remember right, and his task after the crash is leading an expedition up a nearby mountain and then returning. When they went mad from pollen, don't ask, he impregnated Camilla. Camilla is forced to carry it to birth. Forced. The book has a horribly pro-life air to it. They literally drug Camilla to calm her down when she's rightfully upset about it, and then the nurse asks how she can be so selfish. Also, McCarran doesn't actually respect her. He tries to tell himself he does, but he's written to have a masculine urge or primal need to belittle her. He even gets a fairly long paragraph in just chapter 2 where he complains after he's reminded to respect people's rank regardless of race, religion, gender, etc. For the rest of the book, he's more or less just present. Moving on to Stormqueen. I read this a few months ago, and I think I remember it fairly well. I won't be rereading it because I remember it taking me forever to get through it the first time. I'll just list characters as needed by A character and B character and so on. So A character is an heir to a lordship who secluded himself in a monastery to overcome his out-of-control visions he has, but is forced to marry and have an heir. He and his wife go to a magic convent place to avoid taking the throne and then goes to serve a lord as a teacher to a little girl's extremely strong magic prowess. The little girl, aside from having the most disgusting writing featuring her, is the best character in the book. I feel the need to mention that it took me a long time to get through this book because I remember being so disgusted with the writing. I had to put it down and just think about what I just read. I think it's a good time to mention that I don't recommend either of these books. In fact, I should recommend avoiding them. The writing is so old and has such warped standards. It was written by a sexual predator, and that comes through in the writing at times. You might think that you know sexual writing because of fanfics or reading smut books, but let me tell you, there is a difference between smut and disgusting writing. Smut is fun. This isn't. I believe the setting of where the little girl lives is called Rockraven. Fun name. Her powers are essentially very strong weather control, hence why the book is called Stormqueen. She needs a teacher in form of the A character because kids in this world that have powers frequently die during puberty because their body can't handle the power in them. There's a schism between the ruler of Rockraven and his brother, and the book ends with the battle being won at a dinner party. I'm not going to tell you everything I remember, but I will tell you that the little girl is like 14 by the end of the book, if I remember right. And when she was years younger, she was going to be married off, and in that same night, she killed her fiance with lightning because he assaulted her, and she was scared because, of course, she would be. She's a little child. She's assaulted later again, and he dies the same way, which sounds all right if you're weird in the head because you all heard that that she killed someone that assaulted her, and you missed the part where this was a book and there was words that you had to read before you got to that part, and that made me want to burn the book. And you don't need to know this, but it's repeated constantly for about half the book. But the father, upon deciding that his daughter isn't going to marry some random suitor, decides to have the little girl marry her brother. The king is going mad during the events of the book, but it still happens. I still read that, and I still hate that. This has been me rambling about a book I read this past week, and I ramble about a book I read months ago. Thanks for listening to me whine.